And we're finally back from our hiatus, and I want to dispel some rumors here at Carnival of Randomness. Who does everybody point to when we don't have shows? The drummer, of course. But contrary to popular decision, you did not blow up or choke on somebody's vomit.
Wow, man, where are we? What is this place? I haven't been here in, like, years.
Okay, this is our typical drummer, but I'm very glad to be back. And we always want to give you a special show when we come back. This is a favorite band of mine. They're returning to perform for the first time in a while, as they'll tell you, with a very other good band, Gringo Star at the Bug Jar. And we'll talk all about that. But we're very happy to welcome members of the Demos.
Yeah, first time.
Who can introduce themselves because I mess up names all the time.
Give yourselves a hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right.
I am Jay. I am the lead vocalist guitar player for the Demos.
I'm Cal. I am the bass player in the Demos.
And I'm Jeremiah. I play guitar and sometimes keys.
And this sounded like the
never mind.
This sounded like the dating game from the 70s almost. But one thing I want to say about your band,
on the beach.
is that I always put you in the category as, okay, what do they sound like? I go, it's just good music. I think it's like sort of, you're cooking, you put a lot of ingredients into the stew. But I may be wrong on this, but one thing, and maybe Jason, because I've seen you wear the shirt, I hear a lot of Big Star.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were instrumental in my kind of evolution as a songwriter, I would say. I mean, we mixed our first record at Ardent in Memphis because of Big Star. Worked with the legendary and wonderful John Hampton on that.
Now, how'd you get down there? I mean, you just guys decided to use that place?
Yeah, I mean, they're very, or at least they were very accessible, and we had known the producer of that record, Mike James, who was also the drummer of the Demos at the time. He had worked there in the past, too, and he was kind of our hookup. And, I mean, from the minute we were going to make a record and had, the ability to go there, I was like, if we can do this at Ardent, like we're doing this at Ardent.
That's
so
awesome.
It was always
the
plan for us to kind of finish the album there, and that's our first record, Lovely, that we did there. And it was, I slept in Studio A one night because we were finishing up mixes, and I think we had to drive home the next day. And I think Mikey stayed up through the end because I was going to take the first shift driving back, and so
Makes
I slept.
A great story, though.
Slept in Studio A, like where number one record was recorded, and it was a vibe. Like it was weird to be on the couch in Studio A in Arden, and you felt like you were sitting somewhere historical.
Did you see the ghost of Chris Bell?
I did not, but I will say this: like
that's real,
the back hallway in Ardent, like. I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, but like there's sometimes you just get like a feeling like you should not be here. It was like 2 a.m. one night. I walked back in that hallway. I think I was like pulling out the Mellotron or putting it back or something. And I just got this feeling like, hey, you should not be here right now. It was like a feeling of overwhelming dread. And I walked back into the control room and I turn to John and I say, hey, man, what's up with that hallway back there? He's like, oh, you got the vibe? He's like, yeah, this place is very hot.
It's sort of more things than heaven and earth ratio type of thing where I think that something, we can't say no about it, we can't prove it, but there's feelings, and you wonder about that if something resonates like
Maybe
that.
Maybe it was the ghost of Elvis.
Well, we heard some stories about Elvis, too, because he used to work there all the time as well. I don't know that we can repeat those.
Yeah, no. I don't think that's a good one.
This is a podcast, so you can swear on it. It's not a radio show.
Well, it's more like, told in confidence, not repeat in confidence.
Don't do that. I still swear I saw Elvis working in Nick Tahoe's late one night, and I stand by that.
I believe that.
I feel like eating at Nick Tahoe's wouldn't be a stretch, but working at Nick Tahoe's, he's really hiding deep if he's still out there.
Considering how he supposedly died, I feel like Nick Tahoe's is the place to go.
I will say, on the topic of Big Star and our sound, Big Star was a huge influence on us, but throughout our, how long has it been, like 21 years as a band? We
finally drank legally.
Yeah, right? The band can drink legally. I think that for us, more than being about a specific influence or a specific, or specific influences in general, it's more just about the power of melody, and we take a lot of time and energy and effort to make sure that every melody on everything we do is as strong and as as at least impactful to us as possible.
Yeah, that's what I hear in your music, though, too. It's not one thing. It's sort of a hybrid. And actually, we were talking about Josh Nessie. I said that about Maybird one time, that, okay, I hear this part here, I hear this part here, but there's always, like, a melody, and there's something different in this.
Yeah, we've like, loved Josh for a long time. I'm trying to remember the first time I met him. I think it was at, like, GFI Studios in 2006 or something like that. He was working with Roy. Right. On that song, Two-Tone?
Two-Tune.
He's my brothers in his band do math. So
like a werewolf stomping on a hobo.
Oh, man. I remember hearing that song for the first time and being like, this kid is great. And then we just became friends, and we have been playing in each other's bands forever. He was in the demos from like a year in 2008 or something like that, and then we backed him up when he was the Josh Netsky band. I went on tour with him once. It's for us, especially in Rochester in general, it's kind of just always been like finding like-minded people.
That's what happened to me being on the scene, though. I meet one person, I meet another person, I start going to these bands. Oh, they're playing, they know each other.
They're all in each other's bands.
That's why I just actually had a Katie Morey show at Book Eater last week.
So have you guys been together since high school then or something?
Yeah, so me and Kale started this band with our friend Alex, who's Alex Northrup, who is in his own right a prolific Rochester musician. The three of us kind of started this band in 2000. I think we played together in 2003.
We did.
But our first show proper as the demos was in 2004.
January
2004.
What really I always say there's some kind of muse or just some kind of force out there that drives people into the crazy world of being musicians. What drew all of you to do this?
For me, I'm a huge fan of SNL. I haven't missed an episode since I was maybe 11 years old. And back then, I would never really pay attention to the musical guest at all. I would just kind of zone out. And there was a night in 2001 that Jack Black was hosting, and the musical guest was The Strokes. And I saw them, and I was like, whoa, music can be like this? And I went out and bought Is This It the next day, and I think a week later this band formed. I saw the Strokes doing their thing on SNL, and I was like, I think that's what I need to do. And
cool.
So that's what drew me into it. I don't think I'd always liked music and I think I was really listening to the Beatles and the Beach Boys back then. Very into older music. And then when I realized that modern music could you could do that, and
there just wasn't a lot of people bringing the rock and roll. That. It was all Britney Spears and
the Max Martin era.
But now you listen to Britney Spears records and you're like, these are some of the best pop songs ever written.
Well,
but it's not cool then, That's the thing.
I always liked Mandy Moore the most.
It's cooler now, I think.
You know what? I would tell this story a few times. When Dick Dale came here, I almost got beaten up because Dick is always late, but then he loves to gab. So I'm second in line. I start talking to him at a Mojo, and he's wanting me to trade me for the Mojo because they didn't have it. Then he starts, by the time we're done talking, he's inviting me to his house in Big Sur. Now keep in mind, this is people waiting for 2 hours in line, and I'm looking going, I'm getting it in the parking lot. But I saw there were these kids sort of behind me, and you could tell they were the misfits in high school. I'm just going, I love seeing this. I love seeing when younger people are into this stuff. And I just think, that's why I think rock will never die, because there's always people to carry on.
It's true.
I felt about the Jayhawks in the 90s.
Absolutely.
I love them guys. I have that Town Hall album, whatever it's called. That's really good.
I like that one the best.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you your opinion then, Jeff. What did you think of the 50th anniversary SNL?
I always have a sliding scale of SNL, because the idea that a show is written, put together, blocked, shot, and made in what is essentially 4 days to me is astonishing and an unbelievable feat in and of itself. So I will say the 50th anniversary for SNL was a decent show with some good sketches. But, it wasn't the best SNL.
Well, people don't get that. I think you brought up a really good point about that. I got back into watching In Living Color again the past year, and I love it. But you go, it's hilarious. But anyone, SNL, SCTV, you look at it and you go, it's hit and miss, and you think these guys had to come up with live stuff every week.
Yeah, I mean it's
and not everybody's Jim Carrey, you know. I mean, like some of his stuff.
But even you can go back and watch you can go back and watch misses with stuff like that. Like everybody only remembers the good sketches.
You know, it's like going up on the original, which I grew up on, and Dan Aykroyd said, there were a lot of bad sketches there too. And you watch it again, you go, that one was pretty lame.
Yeah, everyone remembers bad.
Yeah, but even back in the day, a lot of the old TV, like Red Skelton or whatever, all that kind of stuff. A lot of those variety shows were live. Mm-hmm. And they'd screw up, they'd laugh it off, they'd repeat the joke, they'd just start over.
Yeah, Red Skelton was for laughing during the lines. But then how did you all come together to form the band then?
Yeah.
Well, so me and Cal ran cross country together, and Cal was always a personality. Like, if you went to school with us, you knew who Cal was just because of his the way he carried himself. Yeah, that's the word. And he played bass, and I don't know. When I met him, I was like, oh, this guy's a rock star, and he played bass, and we were like, "Hey, Cal, you want to play bass in a band?"
I was like, "Yeah, I've been waiting for this chance."
Do I get to miss gym class?
That's what I did for the podcast. I went outside, and Greg was by the dumpster. The drummer, like, "Hey, dude, put down the brown bag."
Hey, I was eating that.
You want to be on a podcast?
And then, me and Cal have kind of been like the through line throughout the 21 years of band. And there's been kind of people who have come in and out. Obviously, big life changes usually kind of have like an upheaval in musicians' lives. So when we all went to college, like Alex found other interests, and me and Cal wanted to continue, so we did.
Well, that's actually how Alex found Jer.
Yeah, and so actually Jeremiah played in one of Alex's bands in college. It's totally like what you said, though. Like once you get into like the circles of these musicians, it's like everybody just
you can't escape.
It's very incestuous.
You know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do for the show sometime? I'm going to create like one of those big flow charts.
Yeah,
a taxonomic key.
Not even like
he knew him. Because they would be like me. People would recognize me. How do they know me? Oh, you're so-and-so's friend, or I've seen you. Then I would meet somebody, oh, do you know? So I started, like, whenever I would mention somebody, I was just to figure you would know them.
Yeah. And, so I think there was a point where we needed a guitar player, and because Jeremiah had played in Alex's band, and we'd seen Alex's band, Northern Spies was the name at the time. So many times we were like, oh, if he's interested in playing with us, like, we should ask him if he would. And the rest of that is history.
And that was what, 2017? 16?
I think we started playing together in 2016. Oh my God, it's been almost 10 years. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Dude, if somebody told me that 2020 was 5 years ago,
I
would be like, no way. You know, I
it doesn't help that we all blocked 2020 out of our mind.
Something happened.
It's like some trauma there.
Everybody feels that.
I think there's a point with any really good bands, too, is that I think the one balance you have to have in life, as you said, one of the big things is life gets in the way. I hate to bring it up, like the Bryan Adams song, Summer of '69, Billy quit, so we got married. These were the worst bands of my life.
But there is some, reality to that, right? And I feel like the older we get and the more experience we have in life, the more that resonates.
I would hear, I'm more like a supporter. I couldn't carry and notice somebody helped me carry it up a stair. But I've always been a big supporter of music, and I'll always hear, man, Rob, our singer, I can't find a good singer. Or I'm sick of auditioning these bass players, or everything. Because I think, and this, Greg, you could speak to this too because you've had much experience. You don't have to be the best musicians. I think it's about guys, people who have chemistry somehow together.
Yeah.
And you sort of fit, and that's the best thing.
It usually all works out then. If everybody's got the same mindset and they're all there for serious purpose and it's fun to play. I mean, a lot of it is fun. You have to have fun.
Exactly.
I mean, you're not doing it to have fun, but you want to have fun doing it.
I'm doing it for fun.
Does that make any damn sense?
Just for the record there.
I think this has kind of followed me around my life in any creative thing I've ever done, and it's that I'd much rather work with somebody that I like to hang out with than someone who's the best at what they do.
Right.
Especially in a band, though, because you think about it, when you're on the road and stuff and you're crammed in a van with these people for a month at a time.
Onions on everything.
Yeah, even if you're like the best of friends, you end up hating each other at some point in that run, right? Because you just can't cohabitate in that close quarters with other human beings for that long without and this touring is stressful.
Like Jay said, this is one of the all-time greatest guitarists wants to play with you. You can go tour with them. Oh, who is it? Oh, Richie Blackmore.
Yeah.
I hope he brings his cool hat.
Yeah, I just think that for me, the musicianship is obviously there's a baseline of you have to be able to play and perform, but at some point you can learn these parts. That isn't the hard part. It's really if you vibe with people and wanting to spend time with people, because it's a lot of work to do what we do. At least the way that we do it, it's very, I'm the person that spends 8 hours in the studio working on that chorus. It's not, there are not, a lot of people can't listen to the same thing for 8 hours on end and come out on the other side of it and be sane.
I would say we also fall into that category, Jay.
I know. I'm not saying
many delusional recording sessions.
I think too, a lot of people are surprised when they get to that certain level that, man, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. This is a lot of freaking work, and it's it's kind of boring. Studios are not the most fun to hang out in, especially if you're recording in Miami or something. You're never outside.
Anywhere in Florida for that matter.
Yeah, but
not a fan.
It's not good enough. It's not good enough, and your ego takes a hit. If the producer's a real stickler for stuff.
Yeah,
we've had a few interesting producer times.
There have been some where you walk out and you're.
I suck?
Yeah,
for real,
less that and more do they suck?
Yeah.
But that stuff never saw the light of day, luckily. But I don't know. It's everything we've done, we've learned from too. It's like I constantly feel like no matter how much I do, there's still a million more things I need to learn to be good at this.
That's the best attitude.
You have to be receptive. That's a good attitude.
I go back, the one thing I do have a background in is local filmmaking. And I would say the thing in the studio, one of my analogies to that is we were shooting a film called Getting Personal, and we went out to a place in Mendon, Kading, and I do my Hitchcock cameo. It's at a restaurant. It's at people on a first date. So that scene you see, that's probably 10 minutes. Took us over 4 hours to film. Now, the smart person could look at, we call it the Eiffel Tower of the lime meringue dessert, because you can see it doing this.
Yeah.
But people don't get that, and people don't get being in the studio. And I've luckily worked here and seen how it goes to do one song or.
Yeah, it's a process, and I think we are very exploratory in the studio. I think when we're working on music, there's no bad idea. We'll chase down any whim that one of us has, and sometimes it ends up with being okay, well, that was not the right way to go. But sometimes it opens up a whole new world of possibilities, and I think, I don't know that I've ever had a song that I felt was done. It's good enough to get to that point of, okay, I think I would want to show this to people. But I hear stuff back now, and I'm if I could do this again, if I could do
does
that
it ever
again.
happen where
that never ends. It
never ends when you're sort of a quasi perfectionist about it's pretty good, but now I wish you would have done this.
Yeah.
I wish that would have.
And
done
then technology changes. You could have done stuff you couldn't do, and things like that.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that we kind of have always been against. Using every advance in technology. We're not an auto-tune, happy with auto-tune band, really.
Right,
it's not like there's not a time where sometimes it can be helpful somewhere, but what is it? It depends on what it is. I feel like we've tuned more guitar notes with it than we have, anything else. And
I think, though, with technology and how accessible it is now, for me, it makes it harder because there's so many options. It's like, how do you how do you know which way to go when you have like 300 different roads in front of you?
I had a kick drum moved over a couple times.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, well, I was going to say is I feel like the technology, and I think this is one of the things that I see a lot in more modern music is that, the technology becomes the focus, whereas I feel like it needs to be secondary to the art, which is the point, right? Yep. So it's like the technology needs to be a tool to support the art and the music and the songwriting, yes. And when it gets flipped, I think that's where you get into a lot of more, everything just kind of sounds the same and everything kind of has the same vibe, and I think, and there's a lot of modern bands and musicians that are just doing amazing things, but I think one of the things that I like to focus on is just bringing more of the soul of the spirit of what we're doing into the actual songwriting and into the production. This way, I think it connects better with the listener.
And just we try to just avoid using any means of production that reduces the human element, because it reduces the value of the performance and the value of the version of the song and the music. And it's, I think that too. We are friendly with lots of bands that, like play to tracks or stuff like that. And like even stuff like that, we don't, we have a sample pad that's back behind the drums that sometimes you can, hit it with a stick and a sound will, trigger to play out of that. But like it's played. There's no... It's
part of the song.
Yeah, it's not like you hit it once at the beginning and everybody plays along to the song.
Right.
Like where... and I won't say who, but I mean, I heard this had to be 15 years ago, a very, very famous band, and the only two people on the stage who were actually playing were the singer and the drummer, and we found out that the rest of them are up there like real high on drugs, just dancing around, and it's like a party, and they're just playing along to the track.
Maybe I can be a musician now. But I was thinking, I'll use a term for your band and a lot of bands I see. It's like authenticity and passion. Where I see, like, I have a friend, excellent drummer. Incredible, been around for years, played with tons of people, but he played in one cover band, and now when I went to see him, all incredible musicians, but you could see they're phoning it in. They're just going through the motions. There's no passion behind it. And that's another question I'm going to jump to, though, is I really have a lot of respect for people who are doing their original music. Now, I'm fine with cover bands doing covers. I've heard I'm in love with the girl. Very good.
Thank you.
I still actually think your Fringe Festival, that promo we did where Kayla is like sniffing the cauliflower.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you guys, but I Kayla too. Remember Kayla? When did Kayla join all this?
So Kayla joined, when was Kayla? Kayla, I think, started playing with us in 2011, right about the time we were releasing our first record. But me and Kayla met in college and have been dating since college, and she is
married now.
Yeah, we're married now.
Congratulations.
Dating since college. Yeah, we've been married for 11 years. 11 years.
Why are you asking us?
2013. I don't. It's like, there's a certain point when like time just ceases to exist.
Yes, that's
I just have to, every time I'm like, how long has this been since this? I'm like trying to do the math in my brain.
Just add 5 years to what everything it is, and you're probably right on.
But so she joined. She's just one of those people that is like very good at everything she does, like very fast.
That's true.
So she just like learned to play our songs rapidly, and fit right in, personality-wise with the group. And I mean, I'm honestly so jealous of her ability to play and write things that are perfect for what we're doing.
And they're never what you think the part should be.
And I'm like,
there's like one, like that trill in If You Only Knew.
Yeah.
Like, she just ripped that out in the studio, and we're like, well, that's clearly the part. And she was just, it was just natural.
Intuition's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. It's not an easy part.
She's probably the least trained? I don't know. She's taken lessons.
I think she might be the most trained out of all of us at this point.
At this point, she's the most trained. But when she started, I think that she just kind of jumped into it, which is, I've just always been so impressed at how good and fast she's able to pick stuff up. And I think I told her within the first year of her playing with us that she was a better player than I was at the time, and she had been doing it for a year, and I had been doing it for 10. Like she's just so good at picking stuff up and learning it, and really, I think she just is very focused. Where maybe that's the problem that I don't have, is that I just can't. I
feel like we need to be
I do 1,000 things. That's why. But I'm finding again, it happens every now and then. I think Greg's going to blow up. He's a drummer.
Yeah. I don't know.
Get out of the room.
I'm out of here. No, you guys have great attitude. You have an extremely good perspective on things. And the last comment he was making, I think it's great that you're not jealous of somebody else's abilities. You just welcome it.
Yeah,
and that is super important.
I think in life in general, jealousy is a very wasted emotion because it doesn't help anybody and only hurts you.
Very true.
So, I mean...
I'm going radio silent.
We've had a lot of friends who have had, bands that we grew up with who've had a lot of success, and we've seen some other people we know be jealous of that success. But for me, it's so great to see other musicians who I love and respect have a success, like just be able to do this job, which is not an easy thing to make a living at.
Well, I think we also know what goes into it, right? So, I think what is hard to see sometimes is like, you kind of think about the narrative of like overnight successes, right? There's really no such thing as an overnight success. Because there's hours and hours and years of preparation for those moments that when you can finally see whatever you're pursuing into realization. And like I think like we know what goes into that. So when we see people, reach their goals and hit these big milestones in their lives, whether it be, personal or creative or professional, like I'm just excited, like, because I think also like personally if I apply it to myself, I know it's almost like affirmation. It's like, hey, they got there, maybe I can too.
Planned happenstance. You work toward something with the intention of one day reaching that, and you may try different things that advance you on your way to getting to that place. But in your mind, you always have sort of the picture of where the direction you're heading.
Your destination.
The self is only that which it's in the process of becoming. Who's that? Kierkegaard?
Yeah. Actually, I love like the 90-minute philosophy books. They sum up every philosopher.
That's cool.
Really fast.
I like
stuff
like that, too.
We'll have to have you back just to talk Kierkegaard.
I wonder what the philosophers themselves would think of their entire life's work being distilled into 90 seconds.
It probably is. It's probably like when directors like read like critiques of their films and they're like, man, these people don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
The best ever was a scene from Annie Hall with Marshall McLuhan, where there's the pompous guy behind in the line. Well, I'm a professor at Columbia. I know what I'm talking about. I know Marshall McLuhan. Oh, really? Pulls Marshall McLuhan out from behind the sheet. You know nothing of my work. Or like in Back to School with Kurt Vonnegut. And I'm really disappointed. This person didn't know anything about Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah.
But one of the things I'm also very impressed by is you guys are witty, all of you, everybody. And I love your videos and who comes up with these ideas.
It's collective.
Yeah, it's collective. There's a lot of brainstorming. I have always been...
I think the SNL background helps
the
quite a bit.
SNL background is huge for me. I think I always just wanted to be a writer on that show. But I also know that I'm not a good enough writer to do that. And this sort of allows me for an outlet for that sort of weird energy. But I also, I say that we do things a lot like early like Harold Ramis films. Like I don't know how much you know about like
lots.
Like the making of Caddyshack, where they just kind of like rolled cameras and then they had.
I guess didn't it drive Ted and Knight like?
Yeah,
he was an old school.
Exactly.
These guys would just be making up.
In the end of the day, they rolled for so long and had so much just like freeform improv that there was like barely a movie there, and they had to bring in the editor of Ben-Hur to make sense of it all. So
the funny thing about Ted Knight though is by the end of that film, you can kind of see him losing it.
Yeah,
Like you almost can't act. Like it almost seems like real genuine. But, like that dude is totally losing his mind.
So we come up with like loose concepts and ideas generally, and then it's usually us setting up a camera setup and kind of spitballing on that general outline, and then making sense of it all in the edit room,
or not making sense of it.
But like, it helps that we are very I think that
silly.
It's very absurdist, I would say, most of what we do, and bordering on surreal.
I mean, a lot of what we do comes from the Beatles, I think.
It's just dumb and silly and fun, and it's fun to have an outlet, because I feel like a lot of times in life there's not really an appropriate time to do that, and I think we just we come together and we just spitball just the silliest ideas. And then we're like, well, that's what we should do, right? We're going to do that now.
That's my problem, though, because I know a lot of theater people, and I always think, okay, can I just play a homeless guy in the back of one play? Because my problem is, I'm like that. I like to ad lib and change things, so I would never follow the lines.
Yeah.
I would always be doing something else. Somebody would just throw a fit because they're reading, you didn't do this.
I also think that we are not good actors,
no.
If we were to script ourselves, it would be too hokey. I think that we try to do everything as earnestly as possible, because I think a lot of the humor in what we're doing comes from the fact that it doesn't seem as though we know there's a joke. So if we were to script something, I think part of it wouldn't work. And I will admit that it doesn't always work in general, but for me, that side of it, it's like this double-edged sword sort of thing, where music and just media in general has shifted from being more artistically based to being more quantity driven and content creation, and I think that this was of course, we can't just go and make something quick. It has to be a highly produced thing. So instead of jumping on the trend of making very quick and dirty content, we're making short films.
Yeah.
I'll give you a good example of that. And I'll toss out the name Bob Gawke, because he knows people. He knows a lot of people in this community, but we were roommates years ago, and he would be filming, and we were in other rooms. We're shooting the bull. We're dying. Hilarious. Okay, put the camera on.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't say a thing.
Mm-hmm,
I had friends say between their sets, why don't you go up and do stand-up? And I always made the point about, the funniest Marx brother was in real life? Zeppo. And it's not that, if you're, I'm funny, I can do it. No, you can't.
I think the stand-up is the hardest performance.
Oh, I can't imagine.
To be able to make it sound like you're coming, having a conversation for the first time every night.
With yourself.
Yeah. I don't know. I so badly want to do it, but I also know I am incapable of something.
I just know one thing from a professional comedian I know. He said one of the big keys is people want to laugh. You have to get an audience. You don't want the audience that's just been there and there's don't get off the stage or any of that.
A large problem for me, though, is that I am obsessed with Andy Kaufman, that is his entire thing.
So the tension.
The tension.
You feed
the tension
off the
building.
tension.
I really like the feeling of, maybe not the feeling, but I like the idea of the feeling of bombing. That to me is a very...
You're not going to pull out the Great Gatsby now. We're going to start reading.
I mean, that sort of thing really interests me.
What's weird, though? Speaking of Andy Kaufman, I was listening to a podcast or something, and then an ad came on, and it was I think it was an iPhone ad, and it was a cover of I Trusted You.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
It was super. I'm it was kind of awesome, and it was the idea of everyone kept dropping their phone and it would break, and it was just the song I Trusted You in the background.
Oh my god!
It was kind of brilliant, and I'm no one watching this commercial gets this joke except maybe two people. And I thought it was amazing.
I can't imagine anybody, unless you're an avid viewer of the Midnight Special or a huge fan of Andy Kaufman.
I remember, I saw him when he first started. He did the thing where he came out, he's bombing, and he's then he's going to go, but then he does the bongos. And I didn't get him at first, but then after I picked it up and got it, in a lot of ways it's like being a bad guy pro wrestler. He's not a comedian. He's like an improv artist trying to get reactions.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing, and I ended up loving going, this guy is brilliant.
I mean, when you see what culturally he inspired, without him there would be no Sacha Baron Cohen, there would be no Tim and Eric, there would be no Tom Green, that whole... Yeah. Anti-comedy movement that really found popularity in the mid-2000s. It's all if you ask any one of those people who their influences were, Andy Kaufman would be at the top of that.
And I do have my one rock star moment. You mentioned Jack Black. You'll notice on this show we go all the way around. Mm-hmm. So I used to work at Monty's Corner. I did the door, and we had a band from Cincinnati. And I'm sitting there. One of the guys is looking at me. I got to ask you, him? He's like, yeah, I'm me. Well, I just met Kyle Gass from Tenacious D.
No shit.
Did you ever get the thing where somebody says something and it's like this weird phenomenon for a while? People are coming up to me at the bug jar.
Hey, Tenacious D.
It's like Kevin Gass. And I'm like, I look like a rock star. Then it's like, what's this guy like? Oh, shit. But no, for a while, so I have for a while though, it was like a whole bunch of people are doing it. It was hilarious.
I used to get Jack White a lot. I probably wouldn't anymore, but when I was younger, people would be like, oh man, like we would be playing shows in other cities and the band we were playing with would come up to me after this and be like, man, I saw you from on stage and I thought Jack White was here and I got so nervous. And I was like, don't worry about it, man. He was not.
I'm not him.
You know, how many CDs, things? I know you had an EP, this one. I have them all sitting somewhere at home.
I have to think about it. So there were EPs we put out when we were in high school,
but
I'm not going to count those. But so I will say Lovely was our first real release. So there's 2 full-length albums and
2 EPs?
2 EPs?
Yeah.
2 full-length albums and 2 EPs. And that is the most recent full-length album is 24-Hour Hotline, which we wrote and recorded throughout the pandemic in the weirdest possible way, like over Skype, essentially.
Yes.
Contactless.
And it was, when we would be in the studio, it would be like the live room was in the basement, the control room was on a different floor. You would never see each other. You would just hear each other through the console. And it was a bizarre experience, but I think some of just having those constraints and that sort of challenge of doing that led to some of our more creative songwriting and production choices. And so we ended up taking a break after we released this record, but before really live music came back after the pandemic. And we, preparing for the show we're about to play in May, are starting to put together these songs that we've never played in a room live together. And when we really got down to it, we're like, wow, I don't know that any of these choices we would have made had we built up these songs playing together in a room.
I think that's because when everybody's way of life sort of just stops, you don't expect it.
Yeah.
And I know, one of my friend's parents, he said it really affected them because, they're older, they have a routine. But when you've been doing these things for so long, and I was like, I'm going to be writing these books, I'm going to be doing, if I could get my socks in the laundry, I think I'll work on a coloring book. Mm-hmm. But I think it's how a lot of people, I know a friend did 4 albums. It's how we react. But you're playing live, you can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
You don't want to go crazy, and I've seen this happen with people.
I think it's definitely a coping mechanism. I think the outlet that we had in recording and writing this record, in such a stressful time, I think in all of our lives, I think it just gave us an opportunity to kind of break out of some of the molds that we were previously operating in a way that was kind of therapeutic in a way. I definitely look forward to. How long would we be on Skype? It was absurd.
Yeah, it would be 4 to 5 hour sessions, into the night,
and it would be ridiculous. It'd be Jay would come up with this progression and maybe a little blip of melody and be like, hey, this is something. And then I'd literally be sitting at a piano in my house, 15 miles away, and be like, hey, try this part over this. And then Jay would I'd have my laptop pointing at the keyboard, I'd play it, and then Jay would just copy it into Pro Tools.
I think we're going to be messed up for a long time still from this, and I just know.
It was silly, yeah.
And the thing is, the death's not cool. But some of my friends were really big introverts were I wish you would never stop.
Mm. Yeah, I was fine the whole time.
In retrospect,
okay in a way, except
there was a lot of catharsis, I think, that came from not having to worry about external pressures or just expectations or doing anything. What was expected of you was you just stay home.
I had a really weird experience with it because me and Kayla had just had our first son December before the pandemic happened.
Oh, what day? What's the birthday?
December 10th.
Darn! Mine's the 13th. That's why I asked.
James is the 2nd?
Yeah, I'm the 2nd.
You're cool. You're born in December.
Sagittarius.
December boys got it bad.
Yeah. So we just, the pandemic happened and we were adjusting to having a child. And I feel like none of the feelings that everybody else I knew who did not just have children, like I didn't have any of those because I was just like had no frame of reference for what life would be like with a kid. And I think that I would have felt the same things either way, that like isolation because your entire life becomes caring for a child. Like you're now responsible for the life of a human being, and in and of itself that like isolates you. So I think that I will always not, I just, when I think back to that time, I just think of like the stress of becoming a father. Not necessarily the stress of like the pandemic, which was there and maybe made the stress of becoming a father worse.
But also gave you like, you had to focus on, being dad, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that's when you have to do something, it's like I have to, do this. You have to. One thing I want to talk about a little bit is, I'll go back to New Math. And I remember the recordings then. And one of the things I used to say, and it was just true, I would say some of them sounded local. These days, everything sounds great.
Yeah.
The technology and everything.
I think that is just, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but technology being so accessible, even we've been writing and recording music for 21 years, and I think back to when we first started, and you couldn't get home. You could get home recording stuff, but it didn't sound like what a studio sounded like. And now I just think the technology has gotten to the point where everybody can sound. You can sound better if you go to $1 million studio somewhere.
Yeah.
But you can get pretty close now in the box, and I think that the idea. Music has just become democratized. Before there was a lot of gatekeeping, and whether that be financial gatekeeping or industry gatekeeping, and now it's just everybody can do whatever they want and put it out there, and I'm not going to say if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think there's positives and negatives to all of it, because, now it's very easy for us to write a song, record it, release it, get it out into the world. But it's also just as easy for anybody else to do the same thing, and that leads to a lot of oversaturation.
And I think that's the problem is there's much. And I still go back to friends. I will ask, mention Josh Netsky. Josh, what do you listen to? Well, the Fruit Bats album's good.
Yeah.
So I get that, but I still ask what friends are listening to.
Yeah.
And that's the way I do it. The one thing I miss is the old idea of search. I could have ordered 4 albums on my phone while we're talking.
Right.
But before I'm like a friend's, dude, I got this, you got to check this out.
I will say, on the technology side of stuff, but I should inherently hate, Spotify and algorithmic kind of music curation. But, I've discovered a lot of musicians that I never would have heard otherwise. Some of these,
It's like Discover Weekly is how I find new music nowadays.
And some of, these bands are, bands that have, 400 listeners in Chicago. Unless I'm in Chicago, if not for Spotify and those algorithms, I never would have found it. And I, love it.
We broke a camera during one of our films, and Beth, the director, she found some guy in Georgia to come up here and play. You never heard of him, but he was great. There's people all over the place out there. But that's one of the things you don't get this about music. No matter how old you get, you think you know about music. Something always pops up you never found, and you find it, you go, this is awesome. But are there any favorite, in terms of, doing these songs, when you've recorded that you really dug? Or you love them all like children, yeah. I
think that as we're making a record, everybody kind of has their favorite.
But that evolves too.
Yeah, I think what I was super into when we were making this last record is probably not what I enjoy the most now. I tend to like the weirdest ones, the ones that are the most outside of what we have done. Our experiments, I'll call them. But that's just because I think that they're interesting to me because we haven't done them before. But yeah, I don't know I'm trying to think of my favorite on 24-Hour Hotline. Probably Wonder is probably my favorite.
You know what I'm asking?
I think
going to
so
ask
too,
a different question. What's like a good? Just pick one song at random. Otherwise, we'll move on. We're not like, but what is like a song that has like a really good funny story or a good story behind it?
A good story
or interesting, or I'll give you an example. Like one of my friends just wrote a song about one of her students talked about a moth that croaks after a week because it can't eat, it has no mouth. And I'm telling you, don't be so sad they die in 3 weeks anyways.
They're actually, so much prettier than butterflies too, but nobody ever
the night
talks
ones?
about
Night
that.
ones are awesome.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Pick one at random.
Okay, there's a song on our record, 24-Hour Hotline, called Missouri, that is loosely based on our time not in Missouri, but
in Arkansas.
Missouri, in the Ozarks.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Well, we were about to go into Missouri.
We were about to go into Missouri, and we found what we call the Oasis of Blessings. It was a very long stretch of tour. We were exhausted. We ended up we had 3 days off in between our show in Missouri and
Oklahoma.
We stayed
at
Beaver Lake, Arkansas.
Yeah, so we found an Airbnb at an A-frame on a lake in Arkansas, and just like rented a boat.
Went to the liquor store.
It was like such...
Ate really questionable Thai food.
Yeah.
I bought weed from a guy in a grocery store that had a Grateful Dead shirt on. I was like, I don't have any weed.
When I think back to that tour, like that moment is like what?
One of the things I've been on the road a lot, and one of the things I always love is the weird stuff you find in America. There's like the gun raffle and the bowling, all these sock hops and all these weird things you always find around.
I think it's called Roadside America. There's an app. And
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks to Paul Brenner.
Yes, shout out to our buddy
My
Paul.
best friend Paul discovered that.
And that's the thing. I was talking to Alex Cote last year. See, I figure you know him, or you know who he is.
Yeah.
And I said, Alex, one of the things is, how do you like all this travel? And he's put it very well. He goes, he's having a regular job.
Yeah.
But I think at your age, like for me now, I'm sort of like slowing down about travel. I was like, I have to go to Geneseo now? Isn't that like almost an hour? No.
And I've always loved driving. I think it's another one of those double-edged sword things. It's something that like in the process of doing it is usually pretty exhausting and stressful, but then you get home and you just want to do it again.
You know what it is for me? I call it the twilight zone, especially at night. You're in a world by yourself. The stars are out. You're like between destinations and the nexus.
Do you remember that drive from Grand Rapids, Michigan to Rochester?
Oh, yeah.
So we, it was like, we had like a week break in a tour. We were touring with our friends Joywave, and it was like Grand Rapids, and then we had a show in Rhode Island like a couple days later. So we were going to go home in between, and we had just finished playing Grand Rapids. And instead of getting a hotel, Jay's like, "You want to just drive home?" And it was like midnight, and we're like, "F it, let's go." And
no eating, no sleeping. Let's go.
It was like delirium. Like I remember walking into a Starbucks as they were opening at a rest stop at like 5:30 in the morning, and we must look like zombies.
Was that a 10, 11-hour drive?
I vaguely remember it, dude.
I don't know that we could do that today.
I saw Michaela Davis and Joywave in Philly because one of my best friends was down there. And, we're hanging out, we eat out and everything. But then all of a sudden I'm supposed to leave the next day. She's got to work. And it's like 3 in the morning. Why don't I drive back now? It'll be a lot nicer. So I had like a huge thing of Diet Mountain Dew.
There you go.
Night drives are the best because there's nobody on the road. I love pulling into a city, like driving into New York or something like that at 2 or 3 in the morning.
Especially when you're pulling a trailer full of gear.
What are some of the bands you played with on the road? I know you've done a lot.
Joywave we toured with a lot. We played with Grandson,
Jukebox the
Ghost, the Aces who were playing the Lilac Fest this year.
Yeah,
go see the Aces.
Check them out; they're great.
We played with so many bands.
Look it on their website. You don't have to look.
We played with Foster the People and Cold War Kids locally here. Those are fun shows.
And I will say, too, like Gringo Star is another one of my favorite bands. It's going to be coming up. Get your tickets.
They're good friends of ours. We've been playing with them forever.
While you can. They're probably selling out. Especially, I got mine, so sell out now. But I actually was at a Fox 45 gig in Auburn And remember the old days of the bug jar where if you got there, like 12, the band didn't go on yet?
Yeah.
I called back to go see Gringo Star.
Oh, that's cool.
No way.
And that's why I was conversing with, because like, hey, I have a podcast. Can I play your song?
Yeah.
But I love them. So
They're so good.
They're so good, so I have to stay for both bands, and I'm old.
Well,
they start earlier. It starts
there's
earlier.
luckily only 2 bands, so it's just us and Gringo Star. That's Tuesday, May 6th.
Cinco de Sixo.
Cinco de Seis?
Yes, 2 bands, 2 great bands. You don't want to miss either.
So, I mean, Gringo Star is kind of the reason that we're playing, because we... Nick from Gringo Star reached out to me probably in December and was like, hey, we're coming through Rochester next May. Do you guys want to play? And we hadn't been playing together for a long time, and I was just like, you know what? Let's do it.
How does this feel, though, getting back? Will we see more of you live in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we took a break in the midst of the pandemic just because I think that all of us were in a place in our lives where, I mean, at that point we had been doing it for 17 years and we're exhausted physically and probably creatively. And I think we just needed some time and perspective. And when we took a break, I remember in like the band group chat, it was like, we never we're breaking up. It was always like, we're going to pause and we will always return to this at some point. We just don't know when.
And I think that's good because I've been saying a lot like about the Beatles, like John saying, we got stale. Could you imagine now, like if a band was together as long as they were, we'd have like 4 albums out.
Yeah.
You know, you're putting like 2 albums out a year touring.
Yes.
And I think after a while, the grind just kills you. And you got to get away a little. You might get along great. Do other things. Then you have all these experiences. It's all fresh again.
Yeah. I think it was enough time. It's funny because it was enough time for me just to miss it a lot. I don't think I missed it for a while after we stopped. And then there was a certain point where I was just like, man, I really wish.
Remember the old saying, how do I miss you if you don't go away? You realize what you really care about doing and everything. So I'm really looking forward to what you do in the years ahead.
Thanks.
I think one thing I say, you're one of those bands that it's never, this just sounds like the last stuff. Why'd I buy it? You know, it's always something new and different.
Yeah, I mean, I think we take a lot of time. Like, you know, we've been a band for 17 years, but we only have a few releases, and I think that is a testament to how seriously we take the quality over quantity type of thing.
See, I like that, too.
It is always my goal to, like, be able to return to something I've made 10 years down the line and be like, okay, I may not love it now, but like it holds up. And I don't know that we have a perfect batting average with that, but like I think that I could listen to most of our releases and be like, I can find something in every one of these songs.
And one of the things I think that sort of ties into is, like, I've said this about myself a lot. We all go through different eras in life. You're not the same person then. Right. But I have to ask one last thing. How did you get the name of Demos?
That's a good story.
This is a good story.
So I've always say for bands, this is my advice, get something that looks good on a shirt.
Mm-hmm. So we had recorded a bunch of demos in Alex's basement on a 4-track tape recorder, and we had like burned some CDs from the demos, and we had been searching for a name. I can't remember what the name was this week, and Alex, because he has always been very into graphic design, had made like a little CD cover for like the burned CD that was like whatever our band name was at the time, and under it said The Demos. And we handed it to one of our friends, and he's like, "Oh, your band name is The Demos." And we just all looked at each other and we're like, yep, yes it is.
That's the best, like, no, when you all just agree like that.
Like, that's way better than whatever the flavor
was. You didn't have to get, like, the notebook with the names.
Yeah, I mean, there definitely was a notebook at one point with, like, I mean, we probably changed the name, like, 6 times before that moment. Because naming stuff is the hardest thing in the world.
Oh, I know from this, because, like, the first time we were, like, I always traveled for work, and like I'm thinking while my partner's driving, it's like, how about 2 Ps in a podcast? No. Then I'm like, when I'm like getting all friends, go, how about Carnival Verandas? Yeah, why not?
I like that.
And a lot of it because, I focus a lot on local music because it's a passion, but we talk about comic books, other things. We get a frog woman of Pittsford in here.
That's cool. I love it.
And everything else. Because I think all you have to do is just have, you don't do interviews, just have good conversations with guys. So this is very cool. You want to check this gig out, but thank you guys for coming.
Thanks for having us.
It's been lots of
fun.
Anybody wants to talk, you want to talk philosophy sometime, come on back.
For sure.
And you're always welcome to come back to promote it. But how do we get a hold of, number one, you can just get your tickets at bugjar.com. Go up. You don't want to go to the door because it will be sold out.
Yeah, I would recommend grabbing tickets beforehand if you can. You can go to thedemos.net to find out more information about it. You can find us on social media, mostly Instagram, but we do have all the other ones. I think we're the Demos Music on Instagram.
Who does the social media?
I'm
the one who doesn't for this.
It's a kind of conglomeration, but I would say it's probably mostly me. But I think all of us kind of take.
Isn't it amazing these days, though, how you can just get stuff out?
Yeah, it's amazing and exhausting to keep up with everything.
You don't want to have one of you. Okay, now he's going to jump in a pool of Jello. Come and watch. You want authenticity.
Well, I don't know. That could be fun though.
That would be.
I'm actually.
What if
I'd
watch that, man? What if you
I'll
get
jump in the Jello.
Well, we'll have one of those those inner tube lifesaver things. Yeah. Well, the lifeguard.
I do want to say, just in general, about this podcast and about Rochester. Having been around the country, I just think that Rochester has such a wealth of art and artistry and great musicians, great supporters of music and art. And, I don't know that I could live anywhere else and feel like the happiness.
Well, I lived in Alexandria. You wouldn't get half the stuff. And I know that's one of the reasons I tried to start this is because I've always had a passion for local music. And plus, I think we just want to have fun. There's this thing called politics. We'd rather just pass, I think, you can. People can talk about whatever they want on here, But the other thing I'll talk about is, what you said. I've had a lot of friends move. I'll mention Caitlin Yarsky. Again, you probably know her. But she's moved. And I used to say to her when she's gone, I've lived in other places. But somehow there's always this sirens call that brings you back here. And I'll complain about it. I'll go, potholes, I hate the drivers and everything. But then I'll remember being stuck in Philly or driving in New York City and go, okay, you have it a lot
better.
Grass is always greener.
But then I'll start swearing and complaining about potholes again to the drivers. So our drivers do suck.
Yeah, but we punch above our weight, though, in most things.
I've heard, it's funny, I've heard that same exact sentiment about Rochester probably hundreds of times.
No, but you know what I've gotten? When I lived in Alexandria, there was a guy who lives up by Watertown. He goes, yeah, when I lived in Alexandria, people are nasty and the driving sucks. I go, yeah, you lived in Alexandria. But I used to get arguments with people from Buffalo and Syracuse who had the worst drivers kind of thing. But okay, I'm going to play from Gringo Star just because I love the song. And yes, I asked permission, transmission, just because it's my favorite song they've ever done. And now, Dealer's Choice, what you want to play from yours? And
we're going to play a single from our new record, 24-Hour Hotline, called Private Eye.
They're watching you? And thanks a lot, guys. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.